The highest and the largest plateau in the world is the Tibetan Plateau. Its enormity is clearly visible from outer space. It covers approximately 2.5 million square kilometers with an average elevation of 4,500 meters. At its westernmost extension lies a territory of India called Ladakh. At the east of Ladakh lies a region named Changtang, meaning the Northern Plain. However, Changtang lies not at north of Ladakh, but north of Tibet. The name puzzles many. Ladakh Changtang, covering an area of 21,000 square kilometers, is an area of high-altitude semi-desert and steppe grassland. The temperature ranges between 25 to minus 35 degrees Celsius. The region is punctuated with streams, rivers, ponds, and giant lakes fed by the surrounding glaciers. It also harbors high-altitude wetlands that are prime habitats, breeding grounds, and key staging posts for diverse flora and fauna, including rare and endangered species like the black-necked crane and snow leopard, hence have a global conservation value. Ladakh Changtang is home to about 8,000 local nomads and semi-nomads. They are locally called Changpa or Changpa, meaning the Northerners. Among them are a few hundred Tibetan refugees who crossed the border in 1959 when China invaded Tibet. They sought asylum in India and gradually settled here. According to the April 2020 population census of the exiled Tibetan government, known as the Central Tibetan Administration, 2,318 Tibetans live in Ladakh Changtang, spread across 9 different areas. These refugees practice nomadic pastoralism. They raise livestock and make periodic movement with their animals to different grazing lands. They are called Dokpa in Tibetan, meaning the ones who live in solitude. This is Sokpunaga, a grassland in Changdang Kuyung. It's August. Just a few meters away from Tashi Dorje lives Angchuk's family. A total of 5 families lives close by. They are all related. Meet Angchuk and his wife Nguchung. They live in this tent with their 2 youngest children. It's early morning and Nguchung prepares a meal for her husband while he gears up to go herding. She helps him at the sheepfold, separating lambs and kids from the flock as they are too young to move far. Research suggests that humans arrived on the Tibetan Plateau during the Upper Paleolithic Age, or some 30,000 to 40,000 years ago, and pastoralism began on the Tibetan Plateau some 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, once Tibetan had mastered yak and sheep herding. But take the numbers with a pinch of salt, because as research develops, the number changes. For example, a few latest findings argue that nomadic pastoralism in Tibetan Plateau began a few millennia before the presumed 6,000 to 7,000 years. Well, take your pick. Tibetan nomadic lifestyle exhibits a strong symbiotic relationship with their ecosystem. They are ecologically conscious and live sustainably, thus thrived on the world's harshest and highest grassland for millennia.
Tedeli, poor Tedeli, hanging the Sri Angular. Tadangarande, Kuyula, Dokwa Teddy. That is like a Minglani. The gloom circuit. Dokwi me that keep Shada Mary, that your body, that Dokata. I showing over Langore, that is Tavo, Kurlan, Jamgore, Tachi Pakle, Tanga, that in the cat, Taniman, Shokan Unga, the Pugin, Taniman, their charter calls in the cigarette. That junkie in that telling the middle of the junkie, he can shoot it. That can a document that number that Yarkachi, Yaposhan and Tabata, Leonardo, Tesia, Doji, Paldo, Taya, the Porodo, that is woman of Jewish, Tara Tampini, Shurado, in the yard, Mardo, in the Talutikor. Subject monkey, and you're and Tarapig. Subject out in the day, you got it, Shandan, Kuyukorani, Tongat in the day, you got it. But without in the Daldo that Yarkasha shut made it. Real that shutters does not Shashin shut made it.
Angchuk leaves father to graze his flock on a higher and fresher pasture. He must walk miles to get his animals well fed before he comes back for his light lunch. Meanwhile, Tsewang, a yak herder, reached their shared tea spot. At peep of the day, he grazes his yaks on a different territory away from Wangchuk's to avoid overgrazing and to allow fresh grass for the animals. These herders adhere to a well-defined territory, and within these territories follow a pattern of strict seasonal rotation, violation of which is punishable. Tsewang stops for his first break. His day began at dawn, and it's been long since his morning meal. They don't eat much during the noon to stay prepared if animals go astray. It is only in the evening, when they reach homes, they eat a hearty late lunch. He keeps an eye on his yaks even on his break. They should be within his eye line. Predators like wolves may be innocuous to his giant beast, but snow leopards snatches the calves and startle the beast, making them go awry. Apparently, such incidents are a common occurrence. Hours later, Angchuk came back, his flock well nourished, and he famished. Today, Angchuk and Tsewang take a break together. They rarely cross each other. Tsewang claims to have seen a pack of animals that he had never seen before. He is awestruck. There's so much to talk about over a cup of tea.
The Jansen men at Chaporgando. Jansen and Aneta Kilgota, Yanchi, Biu Dakota, Yeru Dakota. They lake among the late, the Drone Poja Lake or Mary. They are Tachipuchi, Jansen men at Chapordon. They are near great the Queen on it, Sanyo the Kitain there taken. What a law line now, Charlie Yerka, money, Mamputa Mio, Yerka, take it. Tataluta to your yes, Chipori. Namako meant of Takovi, Talumento as you told Manori. Kala ta ngemi khamne dewa da terani mopore. Tan dan teren yeni nyaran ko yang ko kerchu yer ka ne kerchu ma chiari kunga te tewa. Kondal da shanda terari ma chia ko so tangare. Ta ya ne kerchu tela jo ta re san da zong na rin ba che se jo ye yong gong se ji me de. Ta po ya chen bu tewan ta lu ngap chu ba do do. Chunga tewa la ni ki tsanga sa sum ju se cheri. Ta ko ko ran rok pa chang kan ten den do map jam da ten nyo yang ga re ne ki le re sa ten da cha ba ne nyo. Ti ma ne nyo se ta kompor. Ta yong ki te sa de ho de ko nda cha da lo ngem ba chong na ne cha zo de la yong ro la mo de ko nda te ke lo de te ke. Chi wo de ro la ma nyong de yong ki cho no do. Chu ku pe lo to ka po do ka. Ta tang ma lo jong ji te lo chop chi chu ni ki to ba lo jong ji de ne. De ni lo to za na to hi men do to gi chen na an ji bu do. Te tang mo ta chan de ni ma chan de on chan de do ko ka chap yang na ka nang do. Chi lo de ka nge chap ma de. Dang lao cha lao te ra so nye cho ne me. Nye de ba ne ko chi to al chap na tra al chap ne chi ji jo me ko. Wo ti cho na san de so ne ko bu do lao de. Ko te ra me de ta pe nye tu to sa me lu me ke cho nyin do.
Tevang rounds up his yaks, or hardy beast, that survives only above 3,000 meters. Yaks are indispensable for the Tibetan nomads as their survival depends on them. Hence, they are locally called Nor, which literally means wealth. Tibetan nomads are hardy, yet cheerful and hospitable people. They have a highly developed social structure, distinct dialects, rich culture, and religious traditions. They are not merely eking a living. They created a rich and remarkable first Tibetan civilization known as Shangshung civilization, and later became a part of the great Tibetan Empire under King Songtsen Khambo, which was once the most powerful empire in Asia 1,400 years ago. Despite this legacy, the wind of change has blown hard on them. They are now confronting the challenges of sweeping modernization that has already knocked on its Himalayan door. The most taxing part of a nomad's life is, unlike the farmers, they have no seasonal breaks. They toil all year round and follow wherever their animal leads, facing the different phases of nature with great equanimity. It's almost sundown, and Angchuk finally reaches home. The lambs and kids are slightly breastfed before their mothers are milked and then bound for hassle-free milking. The nannies and ewes are then round up and tethered together for milking. Tethering these mammals takes more than one, so 10-year-old Tovang, Wuchung's son, is helping his mother. The goat is the preferred livestock as they are valued for their cashmere, their primary income source. Rams are kept for their wool, they fetches decent money. Their wool makes blanket, sacks, belts, slingshots, and more. Nannies and ewes not only give milk, but they help increase the flock size. Toang lends his hand at milking, a common practice among the children of nomads. Milking and making other milk products are usually women's chores. These animals are also consumed for meat. However, they are killed in meager numbers only to feed the family. Tibetan nomads butcher their livestock only at the end of fall or the beginning of winter, and not every season. Some of them are sold to butcher for cash. Angchuk releases ewes and nannies once it's milled and finally the animals are penned for the night. It's now family time. Everyone gathers around the hot stove. Nguchung begins to prepare dinner and breastfeed her youngest, while Towang tries his hand at English. He says this is his first ever attempt at the English alphabet. Impressive for a first-timer. Tibetan schools in exile now focus more on the local script, as the pervasive English language can be easily picked up. He also says he aims to join the Tibetan army and not be a shepherd.
야 다시 들레니 메라든지 도지라고 장당 구윤이 아 저조이 내가 이비메 톤에서 단다바도 타 세컨드 안다 죽대 죽신 받대 막 가와 지클라마틱 페이고 또 원에 라다케 침부실리고 또 자갈케 침부실리고 또 가리 라다다 배바스 메가 지니기 상마 도도지 지니기 잘 죽디고 단다 내가 죽디고 단다 죽디 죽신 받대 아랑 라티나 단다 demjo longba teni dujere buchiki kuji yang neke demjo lari gole kyonso tiduga la ya nganzu de chela ya japjo na nganzu tejo na ne su mi kai tonsho sidugara nga ya khala so la chimbai ta mo wala ta nima chu jonga ni shu ti hula ramne shu wala ta demjo la kula ni ramne nangala 투스리 부지 배야래 제주라 단다 갑 제주라 단다 당고시네 게디시서 계속 잡죠티네 인전 좀미 가서 줘나 아 자고 그냥 칼라소에 진짜 고요서 양게디시서 도치래 만도네 춘두어 말해라.
Rigzin points Tibet to his nephew, who sees it for the first time. This is Tibet, Rigzin's fatherland or his country, invaded by China in 1959. So unfortunately, he's on the other side instead of living on that side. If we zoom into the village-like structures below, it looks like this. Chinese have built fancy buildings here for a territorial claim. The border between China-occupied Tibet and India divides Demchok into two. The long river in the site is the Indus River. It rises in Tibet and flows through India and Pakistan, making its way to one of the top 20 longest rivers in the world and empties into the Arabian Sea. The farthest village in the scene is Tashikang, just 28 kilometers from Demchok. It's hardly visible here, but lies right near the top of the Indus River in the view. A village in Ngari region of Tibet, Tashikang is located at the confluence of Khar River and Indus River, which merge to flow downward as the Indus. The place is also of historical importance. This is the top of Mount Larigarpo. Kailash Observation Point of India stands there at the peak. Just left to the OP is the statue of the deity Kolodomba. Rigzin and other nomads who came to the top to seek blessings also had the chance to see their country Tibet through army binoculars.
딜라 꼬라 쪽숨 잡나 강으로 붙이 꼬라 찍대요. 나는 쳤다 깔았어.
아니 딜러 거로 쪽숨 잡나.
딜라 미 꼬라 숨 쪽숨 잡라. 강으로 붙이 꼬라 찍고 그래서 내가 이네 버렸어.
A cairn like this is called Hapse in Tibetan. It is believed that the mountain deities reside in such cairns. Apparently, this is where the mountain deity of Demchok lives. It is customary in Tibetan religion to stop and present tea or barley flour to such cairns as an offering to the deities for peace in return. The stream in the center currently serves as the international border between China-occupied Tibet and India. Everyone is back in the village. Demcho is highly contested and one of the strategic areas for both the nation along the border. This is the full view of Demjo Larigarpo Mountain and Demjo Hamlet. The buildings in the picture are homes, a new community hall, a small monastery, an old community hall, a guest house, a community kitchen, and a few more homes. This is obviously the Indian-administered Demchok. From there, at the back, begins the region of Demchok, controlled by the Chinese. The village we have already zoomed is right below the big mountain, where the willow trees are. Chinese observation points stood right near that rainbow. There are many stupa-like cameras fixed on those mountains. Even few Indian armies expressed surprise at those strange Chinese surveillance gadgets. Rigzin is summoned to cook today. Since nomads in Ladakh graze their livestock on monasteries' estate, they must return the favor in the form of labor. Almost all the land in Temcho, Kuyul, and most of the land beyond Changda Nyima is owned by Heirs Monastery, with Dukchen Rinpoche as its supreme head. A new statue of Demjo Kolodomba, a tutelary deity, commissioned by the 12th Dukchen Rinpoche, was completed and installed earlier today to subdue the negative energy from the area. Nomads and semi-nomads from Koyul and Temjok have gathered for the occasion. As evening sets in, prayers conclude and consecrated edibles are distributed. Tukse Rinpoche, one of the foremost disciples of the 12th Dukchen Rinpoche of Drukpa Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, is due to visit Demcho in a few days to consecrate the statue. So a meeting is held to discuss the arrangements. As Rigzin and friends cook dinner for the crowd in the community kitchen, monks from Heirs Monastery, who had come to oversee the installation of the new statue, were entertained. Since nomads rarely get together, they indulge in a full-on revelry and party until dawn whenever such occasion arises. The following day, everyone customarily queued up to see of the monks of Heirs Monastery returning to Leh. Rigzin too returns to his fall pasture in his nephew Gurme's car. Wildlife like kyang or Tibetan wild ass is a common sight here. Most nomads like Rigzin Dorje make good use of resources like cars when available to stop by their relatives and friends who they scarcely meet and catch up on news and gossip. Rigzin, or Ugu Rigzin as Gurme calls him, stops at their relative's tent for tea and chat. Soon their neighbors joined. Good hospitality is a trait so deeply rooted in every Tibetan nomad that it's considered common sense. Bidun, the little girl, has anda put on her face. Anda is a sunscreen made from a concoction of flowers. It also protects the face from harsh wind. The uncle and his nephew finally carved out a time to play Sho, an indigenous Tibetan game of dice. Although the game is notorious for its gambling menace, the game also has friendly variations played by Tibetan of all generations. Apart from being a complex and interesting game in itself, another element of Sho, called Shobshe, takes the game way up a notch. Shopshe or dice commentary are the verses uttered by the player when wishing a dice to fall in their favor. These verses are creative, fascinating, and informative, touching on subjects like Buddhist moralities, Tibetan worldview, sexual themed, food, happiness, and so on. In fact, some researchers declared Shopshe a Tibetan literary art. On the other side of the mountain, Chögyal's family is moving today from Puwa to Gyagani grassland of Sumdo. Seasonal migration is the central characteristic of a nomad's life. These movements are designed around the movement of animals to favorable pastures. Their migration is well arranged and strictly regulated. These Tibetan nomads, who revered Mother Earth, understood its fragility, and hence, living an ecologically conscious life for millennia is now faced with the dilemma of two sides of modernization, and there is no escaping. Animals carrying burdens during migration are now replaced by trucks. All their life savings or family's assets are bundled up in one small pickup truck, barely leaving an ecological footprint. And off they go. And yet, these Tibetan nomads who have least contributed to climate change are the ones most impacted by it. The Tibetan Plateau has earned synonyms like the third pole, the roof of the world, Asia's water tower, and the rainmaker, all indicating the plateau's importance to the world. Water from Tibet feeds 1.4 billion people downstream, meaning almost 1.5 of every 8 people on this planet drink Tibetan water. And now, illegitimate Chinese rule in Tibet since 1959 has degraded the plateau's ecosystem close to its breaking point. China's insatiable greed for money and power reflects in its policies. Any call for action against its greed is suppressed. Hundreds of Tibetan environmental activists in Tibet have been arrested, tortured, or put to death. Nomads in Tibet are removed from their grassland. Tibet's rivers are dammed. All this, in turn, affects the world. These nomads are now bearing the brunt of global warming. Sadly, these children would not be able to live the subsistence life their parents lived. The temperature on the Tibetan Plateau is warming twice that of the global average, which means nomads' lives are affected and their very subsistence is now questionable. They are probably one of the last Tibetan nomadic families. These people who have kept intact our fragile environment for millennia, whose survival today is proof of efficacy and rationality of their lifestyle, is now endangered. Thus, they are, perhaps, the last heirs of the Tibetan Plateau.
Ani lobjong tang chi to jagar tang ta le ta kaza ka pu do re ta lo chu chu chi ma to ke ngarang gi ta to ta na ka wo ta sha to rizong de man den ti ma to ke ta ja pe ka le sha to ka